Is the fan creating a problem? Visual thing.
Um, sure, sir.
So there's still that blurry kind of thing behind, right?
Slightly, but I think that's all right.
Okay.
Okay, yes, I think we're live on. Um, I'll just check. Yes, we're live on Instagram. Let me check. Yes, well, we can start.
Yeah.
All right. Uh, Since April of 2026, India's nationwide compulsory provisioning of E20, a variant of petrol blended with 20% ethanol, instead of E10, petrol blended 10% ethanol, from which most of the country's vehicles are currently designed to use, has drawn fierce criticism from many of its users. This rollout comes at a time where India is looking for cleaner alternatives to fossil fuels as it strives towards meeting its climate commitments while ensuring its energy security. But is ethanol blending really the answer? Or are we rushing towards a solution that is incompatible with the country's desirable economic and environmental trajectory? We welcome our audience to another edition of EPW Conversations with our editor, PK Arun sir, with whom we will explore these questions in some detail. A very warm welcome to you, sir.
Hi, Tia. Let's talk about this.
Okay, before we get to the present debate, sir, let us begin our discussion by understanding the rationale initially attributed to the introduction of ethanol blended petrol in India. And how have the ethanol blended targets progressed over the years? And finally, are they in line with the readiness of vehicular manufacturing sector?
Yeah. So originally, when we started, we had less than 2% blending of ethanol into petrol.
Right.
This was actually supposed to improve the quality of the petrol, reducing engine knocking and things like that.
Yeah.
And it was also supposed to help our sugarcane farmers find another outlet for some of their products.
Mm.
But now, since the program has been stepped up massively to from 10% from 2% to 10% and now to 20%, the picture has changed significantly. Uh, Now it is justified on the basis of reducing India's dependence on imported crude oil, which is our single largest import bill, and secondly, on reducing our carbon emissions.
Right.
Actually, on both these counts, the use of ethanol is not particularly efficient. This is the reality.
Mm. Right. So, recently, just adding to that, the government has also agreed that the E20 blended fuel could result in a 3 to 5% reduction in fuel economy. But it's also mentioned that apart from this, E20 does offer a higher octane rating, anti knock characteristics, better pickup, even among others. So, how far do you agree with this?
See, this is a technical claim
Yeah.
which has been based on testing by the Automobile Research Association of India, AIRA, and by manufacturers. Now they're saying that it doesn't actually affect engine performance, whereas people who use this fuel feel that it does. Now, whether it absorbs moisture from the air and leads to corrosion of engine parts in the petrol tank part, that we don't know. But even if, say, we take the government's claims at face value, there are other reasons why we should not be doing this.
Right.
Now, the government will say many countries around the world actually use E20 petrol, actually even higher levels of uh,
Mm.
ethanol blends in their petrol.
Yeah.
And so, why should we in India be different? Actually, this is again not a very usual comparison. In fact, most countries have 10% or lower levels of blending of
Right.
ethanol and petrol. In the European Union, it is less than 10%. In China, it is 2.1%. In sorry, in the US, it is 10%.
Mm-hmm.
In, of course, there are some varieties of ethanol blended petrol where the content of petrol ethanol can be as high as 85%. Now, these are meant for vehicles which are specially engineered, designed to use this grade of ethanol blended petrol. Ordinary engines, ordinary cars which use petrol cannot take such large quantities of ethanol in their fuel. Now,
Right.
where we are actually pressing against the maximum when it comes to 20, up to 10% was okay. Now, there are three countries which use significantly higher levels of uh, ethanol. One is Brazil,
Mm.
another is Paraguay, and trying to go their way is Thailand.
Right.
Now, because these countries do it, it doesn't mean that India can afford to. India is
Yes.
very differently placed,
Mm.
and two, three different ways. One, see, these are very land extensive countries.
Mm.
They, there is a measure called per capita arable, that is cultivable land. The
Yes.
per capita arable land average for the world at large is 0.17 hectares. In India, the per capita hectares of available land is 0.11, way below the global average. And
Yeah.
India, you must understand, we support 18% of the world's population on 4% of the world's land area. So we need to be very careful how we utilize the land. 60% of the land is already converted, brought under crops. We cannot really increase additional areas under cultivation for ethanol or for anything else. Now, whereas a country like Brazil or Paraguay, we have huge amounts of land which can still be converted into agricultural use, and where they can grow sugarcane. Now, that is not the case with India. But this is again, it's not the primary criticism of the ethanol policy. It is
Mm.
that it is futile. We save neither much foreign exchange, nor
Mm.
do we save on emissions.
Mm.
Now, let's take up emissions first. Suppose you wanted to actually uh, reduce emissions. What should we do? We should first plan for massive public transport. If
Yes.
everybody travels using their own private vehicle, it stands to reason that we will burn much more fuel than if we rely on public transport.
Right.
So, a strong commitment to public transport is what will actually reduce emissions in mobility. Now, for that, you need to plan not just introduction of more buses and trams and metros.
Mm.
You need to plan for the first mile and the last mile. Now,
Right.
if I get out of my home and I want to reach a particular destination,
Mm.
I must have a predictable, certain time for the travel.
Yes.
Second, it must be comfortable, and it must be, as I said, certain that I will actually reach there. Now, that means if I step out of my home to the nearest metro station or a bus stop, it must be, I must have an easy way to navigate that journey. Delhi tends to be very cold and very hot in many seasons. You don't want to step out into very hot weather, especially the kind of weather we have right now. Be all
Yes.
sweaty when you return for work.
Right.
So, how do you plan for the first mile and the last mile of the journey? So, it's not enough just to say when you say public transport to talk about buses and BRTs and metros and local trains. You need to also talk about the first mile and the last mile. And that must be in a comfortable, predictable fashion. So,
Yes.
plan for that. This is the way to reduce your carbon emissions.
Also.
Second, the way to reduce carbon emissions when it comes to individual vehicles is to actually use electric mobility. You know, there is this certain physics to an internal combustion engine which cannot be overcome. These are some of the most energy inefficient machines we have invented. Only about 20 to 30% of the energy content of fuel that is put into a car or a bus or truck or whatever
Mm.
is converted into forward motion for that vehicle. The rest just dissipated.
Right.
I mean, a lot of the heat goes through the tailpipe, the exhaust.
Yes.
And if you look at it, we actually use coolants. We buy expensive coolants and put it to cool the engine block because there is so much of heat generated
Mm.
which
Mm.
cannot be put to the use of taking the car forward. So we
Mm.
have to dissipate it using coolants. So
Right.
about 80 to 70% of the heat that is generated is just wasted. Only
Mm.
the rest goes into forward motion.
Mm.
Whereas in the case of an electric motor, in an electric vehicle,
Mm.
80 to 90% of the energy that goes into that uh, vehicle is
Mm.
used for moving the vehicle forward.
Mm.
So, if you are serious about our commitment to reducing emissions, we
Yeah.
should use one, public transport, and two, to the extent that people still have to use private transport, and to the extent that those segments of the public transport that use internal combustion engine, sorry, some vehicles, it will have to be run on electricity.
Mm.
Delivery vehicles, for example. Actually, there is a one good thing about India's electric transition. Most three wheelers, uh, at least in cities like Delhi, and actually delivery vehicles are turning into electric vehicles. This is what needs to be encouraged and further incentivized. So, electric mobility will reduce emissions. Mass mass transit systems, public transport will reduce emissions, but simply by going to ethanol will not. Ethanol is also a hydrocarbon, uh, and it is significantly less energy dense as compared to
Mm.
petrol.
Yeah.
So you'll have to burn more of this to produce the same result, which is why the minister said that it is slightly less, uh, energy efficient. You'll have to use more. Fuel
Right.
efficiency comes down.
Yeah.
So that is really useful.
Right. Uh, Another, aspect of this entire issue is that, especially the the claims don't really hold up to scrutiny when we map the entire life cycle of ethanol. So could you elaborate a bit more on especially the sourcing process, the production process, to the final combustion of the blended fuel in our vehicles, and what that does to the environment?
Yeah. So most people think of sugarcane when you think of ethanol, right? Uh, Ultimately, ethanol is nothing but alcohol, the same kind of stuff we drink uh, in a far less concentrated form. It is CH3, CH2OH, which is produced from breaking down glucose. Starch can be converted to glucose, and when glucose breaks down, you get alcohol. Now, the starch in the or the sugar or fructose in the sugar cane has to be converted into alcohol by fermentation. Now, for that, you need to crush whatever is the source of starch. So there is a process. Okay, for in the case of sugar, you can take it from molasses. So molasses is already there. But you have to allow the molasses to ferment, and for that some heat has to be supplied. Then once it is fermented, the whole mash has to be distilled, which again means you are applying a lot of heat to get this distill the alcohol out of it. So sugarcane has to be transported. The that is again consumes energy. The machinery that is used for crushing the sugarcane uses energy. So it's not as if by when you use ethanol, we don't
Hmm.
use energy at all. There a lot of energy goes into the preparation of ethanol.
Yes.
But the real fact is that it is not mainly sugarcane that is used to produce ethanol in this country.
Yeah.
60% of the ethanol produced in India comes from grain,
Hmm.
mostly corn, but shockingly, even from rice.
Hmm.
Uh, Recently, the report came out that the rice that the government had allotted for for ethanol production
Hmm.
have been diverted to rice mills.
Hmm.
Some people uh, use that to sell grain to people, to convert the paddy into rice and to sell it to ordinary people.
Right.
So the theory was that substandard uh, rice or paddy that is in government godowns
Hmm.
we will use for fermentation to ethanol. But
Hmm.
instead of that, that's also being sold to people as food, thanks to the great ethical framework in which the entire system operates.
Hmm.
Now, can you think that 60% of our ethanol is produced from grain? And this grain has to be grown using subsidized water, subsidized fertilizer, and subsidized power. Uh,
Hmm.
if it's not canal irrigation, you have to actually dig deep bore wells, and you have to lift this water up from deep underground, depleting the groundwater and using up a lot of power. Now, see, if we had lots of fertile land where you could just allow sugarcane to grow,
Hmm.
and we could use our sugarcane byproduct of molasses to
Hmm.
generate all the ethanol, probably there wouldn't be such a big problem. But we are actually utilizing grain, which has other uses, and the land on which this grain is grown has other uses. Uh, and one principal other use is actually oil seeds. Now, we use many oil seeds for generating the edible oil that we need. India is one of the world's largest consumers of edible oil,
Well,
and we are one of the largest importers of edible oil.
yes.
For more than $20 billion worth of edible oil, we import. So, when the demand for corn goes up because of the demand for ethanol,
Hmm.
then farmers abandon crops like soybean and switch to corn. So then what happens?
Hmm.
Because there is a shortage of locally grown edible oil or seeds,
Yeah.
then we are forced to import edible oil.
Hmm.
So when you say we reduce our dependence on imported crude, we
Hmm.
are increasing our dependence on imported edible oil
Hmm.
in the process, because we don't have so much of free land. We are a
Yes.
land scarce country, and the land that is used to cultivate the grain or the sugarcane that goes into the production of ethanol
Hmm.
has to be diverted from some other useful crop, which probably India needs even more rather
Yes.
than these things. Now, another side effect of using corn for ethanol production, corn is the principal feed for what? Chickens,
Livestock.
right? So uh, we don't actually feed grain to animals. That
Yes.
is the case in very rich countries where they feed
Yeah.
grain to animals and then you eat the animals. India,
Hmm.
we eat the grain directly for the most part,
Yeah.
but we do feed corn to chickens.
Hmm.
And if the huge demand for corn
Hmm.
from the ethanol industry drives up the price of corn,
Hmm.
then the price of chicken feed will go up. That
Yes.
means the price of poultry meat will go up and the price of eggs will go up.
Hmm.
And these are some of the cheapest forms of protein available to Indians. Now,
Yeah.
eggs principally are the cheapest protein available to Indians.
Hmm.
And if you should make that more expensive,
Hmm.
how is that good for the country?
Right.
India, in all rankings of uh, you know of malnutrition, of childhood malnutrition, undernourishment, etc., we
Hmm.
rank we are up there when in terms of malnourishment, and at the bottom when it comes to the health of our children. And we are
Yes.
making eggs more expensive, saying that we need to produce ethanol. How
Hmm.
ridiculous is that?
Yes. And nutritional security is something that also has intergenerational effects. It
Exactly,
just uh,
exactly.
and the situation is quite grim, as highlighted by the latest round of NFHS survey as well.
Yes, absolutely.
Um, Another reasoning is that India imports close to 88.5% of crude oil it consumes. So the government says for every a barrel of oil bought from abroad exposes the country to price swings, and ethanol will actually help lessen this blow. So, would usage of ethanol help truly lower the pressure on our foreign exchange coffers? Or is it merely shifting the burden of import elsewhere?
So at first, this might seem a very attractive argument. If 20% of the petrol that is used is substituted with ethanol,
Hmm.
shouldn't that lead to a 20% reduction in our import bill? No, it
Hmm.
doesn't work like that. Because we are producing our ethanol from crops that consume a lot of energy directly and indirectly, that a lot of that import still happens.
Hmm.
We uh, our import bill on fertilizer
Hmm.
is $14 million
Hmm.
directly. Uh, but if you also incorporate the inputs that go into making fertilizers, rock
Hmm.
phosphate, sulfur,
Hmm.
ammonia,
Hmm.
and natural gas, then our import bill on account of fertilizer is actually around $28 billion.
Hmm.
So this is not small. Huh? So, and to the extent that we produce ethanol from grain and sugarcane, which are not naturally grown, organically grown, but consume large amounts of fertilizer, expensive import of fertilizer,
Hmm.
and subsidized fertilizer. So we fertilizer is one of the largest subsidy items on the budget.
Hmm.
Nearly 2 lakh crore rupees probably will be spent this year on fertilizer subsidy,
Hmm.
and a good portion will now go to subsidize ethanol.
Hmm.
Now we uh, even when in the case of power, I told you we have to dig
Yes.
borewells to bring out the water to feed the sugarcane's need for water, or even to irrigate corn or
Hmm.
rice. Now, power, 20% of the coal that is used for generating power is again imported.
Hmm.
Although India has the world's fifth largest reserves of coal,
Right.
we are still unable to mine enough coal to feed our power industry's requirement. So
Right.
we import 20% of coal. Of course, some coal we have to import because coking coal we don't have, which is a hard coal, kind of coal that is used for making steel. Iron mixed with some bit of coal is what makes steel, right? So that coking coal we have to import. That's okay, but we are importing large quantities of thermal coal. Why? Because we are inefficient in mining coal.
Hmm. Yes.
So, so ideally, we should be overcoming this constraint.
Hmm.
There's nothing in the law of physics or laws of nature
Hmm.
which prevents us from mining the coal that we already have in
Yeah.
our own land.
It's
So, if you
slightly.
want to reduce the import bill,
Hmm.
then we should be using more of a coal rather than
Hmm.
importing crude.
Hmm. Hmm.
You were saying?
Slightly higher ash content is there as far as I'm aware in our coal, but
Yes,
nothing stopping us from using it.
yes. So there is higher ash content, but luckily there is also very minimal sulfur content, which
Right.
means that our coal doesn't produce the acid rains that
Yes.
many kinds of coal abroad is
Hmm.
prone to generating. There
Right.
is no sulfuric acid being generated when you burn this coal, very little.
Yes.
So ash can be reduced in the ash content can be reduced in various ways of
Hmm.
what is called beneficiation.
Hmm.
Uh, there are now technologies for dry beneficiation, which will prevent the wastage of water. Uh, Now, in the normal kind of beneficiation of coal, what you do is to you crush coal and then you float it in water. You add various things to that water to make the specific gravity high enough to make coal float. So coal will float,
See.
whereas the heavier material will sediment at the bottom.
Hmm.
You skim out the coal out on the top, and then you have uh, beneficiated which is coal and very little of non-combustible earth and rock and shale, etc. Uh, into that. So that is
Okay.
one way to beneficiation. But there are technologies for dry beneficiation, where you don't have to actually make this coal wet by floating it in water and ruining that water in the process.
Hmm.
So then you should invest in that. Now, I mean, this is entire all tied up with our overall quest for energy security.
Yes.
So recently, the government finally woke up to the need for a mission to gasify coal, right?
Hmm.
So
Yes.
you might say that relying on coal will vastly increase our carbon footprint.
Hmm.
Uh, Now, it will increase the carbon footprint, but
Right.
India produces actually uh, a fraction of the electricity that the world uses per capita.
Hmm.
Our per capita electricity consumption is very way below the world average and
Yes.
way below that of other developing countries like China.
Yes.
So, in any case, we have to step up our energy production. Of
Hmm.
course, we should for renewable energy, which we are, but alongside that, we will still need to use coal. Our thermal power generation capacity will be the mainstay. While 50% of our power generation capacity is already renewable, or rather non-fossil, including nuclear and hydel, the actual power generation is more than 70% still from thermal, because the other renewable power is intermittent. Uh, Only when the sun shines during the daytime you will get solar power. Only when the wind blows will you get wind power. So we are still dependent for the most part on thermal power. We're burning coal. So you can try to make this power generated from coal less carbon and soot intensive. There are the various clean coal technologies that can be utilized, of which the cleanest is actually conversion to gas. Now, China produces its fertilizers entirely from uh, gas converted from coal. So, China is one of the largest importers of natural gas. India imports half our requirement of natural gas from abroad, and a large part of our gas is actually utilized for producing fertilizers. So fertilizer production requires a lot of gas. So to the extent you are importing gas to produce fertilizer for corn and uh, sugarcane, you are not reducing your import dependence uh,
Hmm.
just
Hmm.
because you switch to ethanol. You are actually adding to it, right?
Hmm.
So if you look at the direct and indirect requirements of imports for producing ethanol, it is not all that small, and we don't actually save much. So if you are serious about reducing our import bill on energy, then we should utilize our domestic, domestically plentiful coal. We
Hmm.
have to overcome the policy rigidities, procedural complexity that prevents us from mining the coal that we have in our own country,
Yeah.
enough of that to meet our own demand.
Hmm.
So that is a domestic challenge of policy and politics. It is not an foreign exchange challenge, right?
Right. Right.
So to
Absolutely.
say that we will either uh, make our people unhappy by foisting E20 on them,
Hmm.
or that we'll reduce our foreign exchange requirement, all this is actually not factually correct. We are
Right.
still directly on fertilizer, on the power that is used to pump up water for create, uh, irrigating the fields of sugarcane or corn or rice,
Hmm.
and also on importing additional quantities of lentils and edible oils.
Hmm. Hmm.
Both crops suffer because of the demand for corn, and farmers desire to grow whatever will fetch them the best money. So when they abandon edible oils and lentils in favor of sugarcane or corn, again we are forced to import additional quantities of lentils and uh, edible oil seeds. So we do not actually save much on foreign exchange by going to ethanol. This is a simple fact.
Yeah.
And as far as the other thing of reducing a carbon footprint, again, as I said, if we really want to reduce our carbon footprint on mobility,
Hmm.
then we should go for mass transit systems like public transport and for electric vehicles.
Right.
So, I mean, it cannot happen overnight, of course,
Hmm.
but we are wasting a lot of political capital, policy resources, and money in this dalliance with ethanol. We should
Right.
end that
Hmm.
and switch over to electric mobility and focus our energies on how to get that right.
Yes. Especially considering the kind of constraints we have. In fact, circling back to the one of the earlier points you made, sir, even in coal-fired power plants in India, how we can use technology to circumvent, some of the emissions is by this process called flue gas desulfurization, but it's not been a completely, like, it's not been implemented as a complete mandate yet, but it's something that would enable us to lower our, I think, sulfur dioxide emissions.
Not just carbon dioxide, even soot
Hmm.
can be precipitated. There are various ways of cleaning up the flue gas.
Hmm.
Uh, there are a lot of things we can do. We can use the w- what a waste heat
Hmm.
and regenerate it.
Hmm.
In fact, we need to invest heavily in the technology to capture carbon
Yeah.
and use that captured carbon to generate our entire set of petrochemicals.
Hmm.
Ultimately, petrochemicals are what? Petrochemicals are hydrocarbons. Uh,
Hmm.
they are derived from crude oil,
Hmm.
and then you synthesize polymers of different kinds,
Hmm.
and you get the petrochemicals.
Hmm.
So why can't you start with the carbon captured from the carbon molecule,
Hmm.
and then create chemistry that will generate the entire series of chemicals that we use in our daily lives?
Yes.
So that is one way to actually reduce our carbon emissions
Hmm.
and also convert that emission reduction from a cost into a profitable activity.
Yes.
So the world hasn't done enough research on this.
Hmm.
India should. India has a manpower. We graduate 1.5 million engineers every year. They do very little R&D because our industry doesn't spend on R&D. So we need to be spending more of our research talent, our genius for bringing out new things
Yeah.
on creating solutions for these kind of challenges like carbon capture and use,
Hmm.
and utilizing more of our domestic resource of coal rather than importing coal or hydrocarbons or crude or whatever.
Hmm.
So that is the way to tackle this problem, not by going with ethanol.
Right. Very quickly, sir, before we wrap up our conversation, we have a few questions in the audience.
Yeah,
Um, they're asking if you could also, elaborate on the impact of farming patterns across various regions, because higher selling price of cane or maize will change the farming patterns across the country. And someone has also commented saying that mini nuclear power plants are cleaner than renewable energy.
yeah. So yes, nuclear plants are not very easily set up. I mean, you have an atomic energy regulatory board to take care of the safety,
Hmm.
but again, these have to be handled very carefully
Hmm.
because handling nuclear waste is a very challenging and demanding task. So
Yes.
is actually getting enough fuel.
Hmm.
Now we have an indigenous three-phase program for using the again domestically available thorium to generate power in nuclear plants. But the starting has to be with uranium, which we import. We don't have enough of our uranium. Thanks to the Indo-US nuclear treaty that we signed in 2008, and which many political parties oppose and actually try to bring the government down on, we now have access to uranium imports. The Prime Minister went to Australia recently and signed a deal to buy uranium from Australia. So they will supply uranium, so we can use that to as the initial feeder. That will be used in the one of the byproducts of the power generation in a uranium-based power plant is plutonium. That will be used in the fast breeder reactor again, which we successfully ran recently. When
Yes.
sufficient plutonium is created in the fast breeder reactor, then we go to the third stage of running our thorium-based reactors. Then the thorium will be converted into uranium, and then we'll generate power from that. Yes, that is good. That's true. Now about the cultivation, it's a very good question, a very relevant question.
Yeah.
We are a crazy set of people. We cultivate water guzzling sugarcane in the arid Deccan Plateau, uh, parts of Maharashtra and Karnataka. In Tamil Nadu, they every year fight a legal battle with Karnataka to release waters from the Kaveri River. It's our share of the water, so we get the. And what do they do with that water? They again use it to grow sugarcane. Whereas the most ideal place for growing sugarcane is probably the floodplains of Bihar, where we don't grow any sugarcane. So there is a gross mismatch between agroclimatic zones and the crops that are ideal for those agroclimatic zones. So, and this is most unfortunate. And these are some of the policy failings that we haven't addressed. Instead of addressing that, we try to shift our problem by saying that we'll use ethanol. That is actually fooling the public. We should not be uh, making ethanol from intensively cultivated, uh, where intensively they use water and fertilizer and use power to pump up the water and produce the grain and sugarcane as raw material for ethanol. No, we should not be doing that at all. We should be cultivating crops which are ideally suited for the agroclimatic zone, and we should be maximizing the productivity in that. We are one of the largest producers in almost any agricultural output today. Milk, wheat, rice, anything, we are one of the largest. But if you look at the productivity, yield per hectare, yield per animal, we are one of the lowest in the world. We are one fifth or one seventh China's in many of these kind of things. So, I mean, these are the kind of investments we actually need to make. We don't, uh, you know, uh, give our agriculture scientists the recognition they deserve. Recently, they created a vaccine for a disease that affects goats called lumpy skin disease. It is a significant breakthrough achievement by our Indian agriculture scientists.
Yeah.
And they had to wait 1.5 years for some dignitary to come and officially release this vaccine. Can you imagine?
Oh,
Nobody from the central government came forward. No agriculture minister, no deputy agriculture minister, minister of state, nothing. Nobody. No prime minister. And finally, they got the Andhra Pradesh Chief Minister Chandrababu Naidu to come and officially release the vaccine. This is the kind of treatment we give our own domestic scientists who have actually achieved a breakthrough vaccine creation.
yeah.
So, I mean, these are the kind of priorities we need to address if we want to become self-reliant and we want to actually reduce foreign exchange outgo or reduce our carbon footprint in the name of mobility or what other essential purpose.
Hmm. Right. I think with that, we can call it a wrap to this particular live conversation. Um, to sum up, as our conversation has highlighted, scaling up of ethanol production further would only create cascading hurdles for the country and does not hold up too well to scrutiny from its environmental footprint and economic costs to its implications for food as well as nutritional security. For those who would like to read more on this theme, you can access the piece titled Don't Focus Resources on Electric Mobility for free our website. I thank the audience again for patiently tuning in and sir for sharing your invaluable insights. Let us hope that India, strives towards a much more accessible, safe, and viable public transport system, and also simultaneously works towards bolstering its electrification of vehicles. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Priya. Thank you, Priya.